welcome back to the program. You're watching Mohawk TV's 2012 election coverage with the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. And our last candidate in studio today is Christine Zachary Deom. Welcome, Christine. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. I'll tell you, I'm getting pretty used to being last all my life with that Z as a last name, Zachary. I never anticipated to be called first.
Right. Well, I mean, we have a busy schedule, and I know you have a busy schedule too, but you're last on the show today from a slew of candidates that we've already interviewed. But let's get right to it. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my God, this is only 15 minutes, you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's lots to say, I guess. Well, I was born here, raised here, educated here at Cattery School. Mm-hmm. And then I went to convent for 4 years in Granby for école secondaire. Mm-hmm. And then I was home again and went off to a little business college in Montreal and worked for a couple of years. And then I decided, I think I should go to university. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I went off to New Brunswick and did my BA there and came home and then got married. I married Ron Shackleton, who was from Tyendinaga, and he's the father of Alexis. Mm-hmm. And then we went off to university again. I went to University of Western Ontario and got what they used to call an honors year, a fifth year.
Okay.
And that enabled me. I was planning that I would be a teacher, and I thought if I went for my Bachelor of Education, I should have an honors behind it because it puts you in a different class as a teacher. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. I went to Western and then went to McGill. And as I was entering McGill, my husband died. Alexis was 2.5 years old then. And I completed that year very well. And I got hired at Kahnawake. So I taught at Garumyanumha and Cattery School for 11 years. I enjoyed that time. But I wore myself right out because I just figured you gave 150% as a teacher, you know, and I didn't know how to recreate myself every year. Mm-hmm. And every year I thought it was getting, so I was doing grade 5 and grade 6, and I was at the point where I was trying to always to be different with the same subject matter. So it can wear you out. So to the teachers who have stuck it out for 41 years, like my aunt, Charlotte Bush Provencher, you know, a teacher for 41 years. Who does that?
Wow,
she's amazing. Amazing, and she's taught all the boys and men in this community. Amazing person. But for me, I guess I just wanted to do more. Mm-hmm. And so there I went through a change and decided to go to law school. And I was at McGill, got my LLB there. Mm-hmm. And then articled in Ottawa for an Irish law firm. And then went to work for Akwesasne. Mm-hmm. I worked for MCA for a brief period of time and then opened a law firm. And I was in that office for about 10 years and then 4 years for the Attorney General, for the legal aid plan. And I worked in the courthouses there for a while. And then Joe Norton asked me to come and work for Kahnawake. Mm-hmm. And I loved the idea. I loved the idea of being off the road. The OPP were very happy as well to have me off the road. And they said it too. Anyway, so I came to work for Kahnawake, and they asked me to work on the senior e-file right away. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, that was the greatest thing. Because up till now, even though I had been involved in a lot of history and anthropology and you know, all of the social science subjects, it really gave me a specific background, knowing about Kahnawake, knowing its history, going all the way back to 1680 and forward. Amazing. You know, all of our losses, all of the facts, the details of what Kahnawake had been through with respect to land. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got to work for MCK, through the senior e-file and other files that they assigned to me.
How long were you with the Mohawk Council?
11 years. Yeah. Going on 11 years.
Yeah, because I mean, as a journalist, I know that you know I'd seen a lot of things over the years and noticed that you were a part of different files.
Yes, there was even, I think, the U.S. claim that we brought too late.
Right.
Really, that claim should have been made 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. And
So it seems so complex.
well, it was. I'm
Yeah.
not a U.S. lawyer, but I'll tell you that was a complex case.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started that particular file, my God, we were in a good position. The New York Court of Appeal had filed a marvelous decision, all in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we put in our claim.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
Then came the U.S. court ruling, U.S. Supreme Court, and that just demolished
Trumped
the
it, yeah.
Akwesasne's claim and ours as well.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been working on since.
Sounds
And then
amazing. What made you decide at this point in your life to run for chief on council?
well, when I look back, I frequently look back on my life. I always do.
Which is a
And
good
so
thing.
I think about, I was a secretary, I was a teacher, I was, and for long periods of time. And then I was a lawyer and a judge. I was chief judge of that initial constitutional court that they had on the American side. And then working for MCK in law. You know, those were significant things. And you look at lawyer, doctor, Indian chief, you know. I haven't been a doctor. Maybe that'll be my next. But I want to be able to say that this was my brilliant career.
Exactly.
You know,
I know
wanna
exactly how you feel.
I want to
yeah.
look back and say these are the things I did.
I find it amazing that you've done all of these things and never, pigeonholed yourself into one career, which I admire in many people too that do a career for 40 years, but I can understand and relate to changing careers, when you feel it's right.
I think really that was the approach of the 60s. You know, you could do what you wanted to do. And so women of that time were not expected to be just one thing forever. That was a dynamic time. So people changed a lot. And so you weren't expected to be pigeonholed anymore. And some of the hard issues that came out of that time was it really women's issues.
Well, yeah,
You know,
it's
so-
a sign of the times for sure. And now you fast forward into this decade and you can do almost anything. It's amazing.
All right, but in each of these cases, I had to prepare myself. I had to have the proper education.
Well, yeah.
I had to have the tools in order to become a teacher. I had to have the tools in order to become a lawyer. You know, in order to get through law school and get through the bar exams and being called to the bar and knowing what responsibilities are to clients, it's you have to be prepared for that, and you
Right,
can't.
It's a very serious profession.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so, saying that with a laugh, yes, it is
Well,
very serious.
I can't imagine. I've never been there, but I've interviewed a lot of lawyers, and I studied law at Concordia University as part of my schooling. So the little law classes that we did in media law I thought the case studies were insane.
Intriguing,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, there were really a lot of information, so I could imagine having that career would be very detailed.
So one of the important things to learn from this is that nowadays young people will go to school and I see them on television being interviewed, and I'm thinking, you know, when I was finishing my first degree, I thought, what am I going to do? I had initially gone to university thinking I was going to be a phys ed teacher because I was an athlete. You know, I loved anything athletic. And so, but when I got there, all of a sudden the pull of history, the pull of political science, you know, those intrigued me.
Right.
But still I was left with, what was I going to do? Well,
You did it.
You just do it.
So now that you're running for council, what made you decide finally to take on another
Challenge?
Yes.
Well, I think I've always wanted to do this. I've always had a big interest in politics. And I'll tell you right now, as a lawyer, you don't have any power. You don't have any way to make the decision. You offer instruction, you take direction, and you offer instruction to a client as a lawyer, but you don't get to act. And I want to be in that position where I'm doing something.
What are you most interested in terms of the political sphere here in the community?
I'm interested right now in how the global economy is impacting us. And 2012 is a year of change.
Right.
I mean, we can't help but hear on radio and television that, oh, that old thing, that cliche, time for change. Well, let me tell you, it is time for change.
It is.
I'm a person who's gone through a lot of changes in my life, and I can smell change coming. And I know that with the global economy, with all of the kinds of comments that Canada is making, whether it's the old age pension and when people are going to be able to apply for it now, I mean, that's an indicator that the money is not there.
Yes.
So when the Liberals were in power back in the 60s and 70s, my God, the money was open and Indian organizations grew and band council organizations grew because of Supreme Court decisions. I mean, they recognized our rights. And so that meant a different kind of organizational funding and a lot of services
back
came
then,
to the community.
And now when you're looking at today, especially in 2012 and over the years, you see significant cuts in funding,
and that's
federal
frightening.
Budgets cut.
It's frightening.
It is fun. It is frightening, and Medicare and all of those things that we have always been used to having are now slowly diminishing. So I understand what you're saying and about the global economy definitely affecting us. How would you bring that back to Kahnawake? Like, what worries you about what's happening here? And what would you do as a chief if you were elected to help the situation?
Well, first of all, let's go back to that comment I made about the global economy and the impact. Having been through the 60s and the 70s, and I was working in the 60s before I went to university, and all of the women in our town used to get on that bus and go to work in Montreal. There were so few jobs in Kahnawake. Even the teaching jobs were left to 3 of our own people, but there weren't many teachers at that point. So home work was not something that was synonymous with that time. Everyone had to work away. The men worked away. The iron workers always on the road.
Right.
And if you look back in the last 20 years, you'll see that a lot of iron workers have chosen to stay home and do work around home so they could have family lives.
Yes.
And the women have been lucky in that schools have expanded and there's been programs for young women to take education courses so that, and language, Ganyokeha, has really expanded. Now, when you look back at cuts and budget cuts, you see that there's a pulling back. So how are we going to address that? We are all survivors. We all know how to survive in this community. And yet people think that we should be more aggressive. And I'm for aggression. I love it. I mean, I love being able to tell people, you've already got all our resources over the past 300 years, our timber, our quarries, all of these things. It's time for you to look at us and say, we better help you with your infrastructure. This community has an excellent state-of-the-art water filtration plant, and yet who does it reach? It reaches a very small ring of the community. And what about the outlying areas? When I go down Mohawk Trail Road and I head towards Gariwanorum, I can't believe it. You go in that school, the first thing you smell is that eggs because they don't have water. And I know it costs a fortune to get waterworks out to our outlying areas. But really, to schools, they should be a priority. There are 2 schools back there and there's no serviced water.
Right.
It's great to have our water filtration, but it's got to get to people. So that was one of my platform positions, that we've got to find a way. Maybe it's time for us to think less about how our administration has to change and more about putting that money into actual services to outlying parts of the community. I know that public works doesn't have big bucks. They have limited amount to expand water, but we've got to make that a priority. When I was a kid, a common expression of mine, when I was a kid, right, but we had no running water. We had a mud floor. Wow. So, and the bus was on the highway and you had to run for it, and you had to make sure you brought stones for the dogs and a stick, and in the winter you had ashes so you wouldn't break your neck on the ice running for the bus. I mean, and that was because there was no work in the town. So it might be coming back around to that. And
well, I definitely hope not. I mean, it is, you are hearing this slogan, time for change. What would you like the people to know in terms of, while running for council, what sets you apart from other candidates, and why should people vote for you or support you in your endeavor?
I think all of the candidates have different experiences, and I'm a great believer in getting the best out of people. And I see every candidate as having something that can be significant and helpful to the community. So I can't say why I would be different from anybody else, but I will say that as probably the oldest person running, that I've got a lot of experience and a lot of education, a lot of knowledge, a lot of know-how, and my skills haven't all been tapped yet. There are some nights when I'm lying there thinking, gee, I wish I would have been an Olympian. I've got so much energy that I still feel I can. If there wasn't an age barrier to that, I think that's what I would do. But I've got a lot of energy, terrific amount. I'm a hard worker, and I've got the background.
I think we've got that. Okay, well, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. So is there anything else you feel is important to add or that you would like to say?
Well, when it came to the water issue, I also thought about the St. Lawrence River. I grew up with it. It was before the Seaway, and that was my daily summer. That's what I did every summer. And I would see the men after work, coming home from work, they'd be going to the river to wash up. They'd have their roll of towel and soap, and that was our water. And Ganawage is a water name on the rapids. And how many people know that? How many people really understand it? I don't think they do, because they didn't grow up that way. I'm so proud when I see people on television talking about taking their kids to the river. I mean, it's an amazing thing to know and understand.
Yeah, especially when you go down to flat rocks and things like that. Yeah.
And when you see that Canada and Quebec have an agreement, a treaty on the St. Lawrence River, they're cleaning it up to improve access to their citizens. Well, MCK wrote a letter, and that letter says, when our canoes can't even float in our little inlet, how can you suggest that you're going to be giving access to the river for your citizens when we should be thought of first, because that's our resource?
100%.
So those are my issues with water. I have other issues too, but apparently we're out of time.
We are out of time, and this has been a very intriguing interview. I wish we did have more time, but in fairness, we did give everybody 15 minutes and a little bit more for, to discuss why they're running for council. And I think you did a fabulous job today. So thank you very much for coming. And good luck at the polls on July 7th. And thank you for staying with us, and Anyawagoa, to all of our candidates who were on the program today. And if you have any questions or concerns and you'd like to get in touch with us, you can always contact us at mohawktv@hotmail.com, or give us a call here on our line, our news line, at 450-632-6397. And in the coming weeks, we're definitely going to be bringing you a lot more coverage and interviews, up close and personal interviews with our candidates. And we're also going to be broadcasting Candidates Nights, which is June 25th. I'm talking to somebody off camera. Thank you for staying with us, and we appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you again here on Local Channel 4. Ona.